I was watching the news the other night. It's a new news program. There was a guest journalist that particular night. I'm kind of watching the program, trying to figure out what exactly is going on here. And the journalist said something that I really didn't expect. She said, this month coming up, we will have a flower moon and a blue moon. Huh? I don't pay attention to the moon that much personally. I'm an early riser. I like to go to sleep at nighttime. I don't do a lot of watching of the night sky. I've definitely heard of a blue moon, but I didn't quite remember what it was. I have no idea what a flower moon is, except for that movie Killers of the Flower Moon, which I haven't yet seen. But my curiosity is piqued. I'm no longer debating with a journalist in my head about whether or not this discussion is newsworthy. I'm just, at this point, listening quite attentively. And now it's like, she's saying you have to watch the moon. It's going to be really cool looking. Maybe some of us noticed this last night and this and that. And then she says, here's the thing about the blue moon. It happens only 7 times every 19 years. And all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, now I know what they're talking about because the Jewish calendar is also on a 19-year cycle. We know that the Jewish calendar is lunisolar, that is, it's lunar and solar. Our years follow the sun. Pesach, Passover, is in the spring. Rosh Hashanah is in the fall. And our months follow the moon. So starting last night and today, the Jewish calendar date is the 15th of the month of Iyar. The 15th of every month is a full moon. The next Jewish month is Sivan. So the 15th day of Sivan corresponds to May 30th and 31st. And fun fact, our gala is also on May 31st. On the Jewish calendar, every month gets exactly 1 full moon. Every month starts with a new moon. Every 15th of the month is a full moon. And the thing is, on the secular calendar, we get that blue moon 7 times in 19 years. And on the Jewish calendar, we get an extra month 7 times in 19 years. And that month, of course, is the second Adar, second month of Adar. Now, of course, the secular years with the blue moon and the Jewish years with the extra month, they don't line up and correspond. That would be way too easy. But it was fascinating to hear on the news an astronomical fact and be able to connect to it to find a way in from what I know about the Jewish calendar. In this week's parasha, Emor, we read about the Jewish calendar, chapter 23, verse 2. Our holidays are called Moadei Adonai Mikra'ei Kodesh, specific times that we are to call holy. So they're special, distinct, they're separate, they're not like ordinary days. And the list of holidays, very briefly, is as follows. We have Shabbat, Passover, the counting of the Omer. We're at this time of the year right now, the counting of the Omer. Soon we'll have Shavuot, and then Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and finally on the list in our parasha is Sukkot. So this list can raise a couple of questions. What about Purim and Hanukkah? Well, these came along later due to historical events, and also Yom HaAtzmaut more recently, Israel's Independence Day. These came along, of course, even later. These are Jewish holidays, but they don't have the same observances as the holidays in our parasha. Now, another question is, why does Shabbat come first in the list? Well, Shabbat is the most important Jewish holiday. We mark Shabbat in a special way with our number of aliyot when we read the Torah. Shabbat has 7, the most of any holiday. Yom Kippur has 6 because it's the second most important. But Shabbat is the most important connection between God and the Jewish people, so it's first on the list. Now, I'll add my own question in along with this group. What does any of this have to do with the flower moon? Now, of course, to answer this question, which I had after watching the news, I had to learn what a flower moon is and what it has to do with the movie, and those answers are on the internet, but not in the Torah. It turns out a flower moon is the full moon in the secular month of May. So when May has 2 full moons, as it does this month, the flower moon is the first of these 2. It gets its name from the springtime season, as May is considered to be the month when the springtime flowers are at the peak of their bloom. And of course, for those who have seen the movie, the story really starts at the time of the flower moon, the full moon in May. And I'm learning this. I'm learning that there are all sorts of moon names that I'm not familiar with. There's apparently one for each secular month. I'm reading down the list, and I see there's one name that I have heard before, and that name is the harvest moon. Now, interestingly, the harvest moon doesn't match up to a particular month. It's the only special moon name, apparently, that doesn't match up to a particular month because it's the full moon closest to the autumnal equinox, which is either in September or October, which makes it kind of like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. The holiday of Sukkot begins on the full moon of the Jewish month of Tishrei, which often, but of course not always, because that would be simple, is the harvest moon. And the holiday of Sukkot celebrates the fall harvest. As we read in our parashah, beginning in chapter 23, verse 39, on the 15th day of the 7th month, which is the harvest moon, give or take, on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the yield of your land, you shall observe the festival of the Lord. You shall take the fruit of the hadar tree, palm branches, leafy boughs, and willows. You'll shake them. It doesn't say that in the parsha. It says, you shall rejoice before the Lord your God. But as we know, this is the lulav and the etrog, and this is Sukkot, our harvest festival. So we have these robust traditions of observing our natural world, connecting to our natural world, these traditions of marking time, connecting time to our experience of light and dark and growth and harvest. And I happened to hear about some of these traditions, the flower moon and the blue moon, on the news. And my first reaction is, I don't understand what this is. I want to figure it out. And my point of connection is my being Jewish, is knowing about the Jewish calendar, about our traditions of observing and connecting to our natural world, marking time, connecting time to our experience of light and dark, growth and harvest. And this was a pretty cool moment of being Jewish this week and being like, hey, my Judaism can help me connect to the world and understand the world. And it was in a really unexpected way. You all know me, you know I love the Jewish calendar, but when I was turning on the news that night, I was not expecting to think, okay, extra full moon, 7 times, 19 years, it's so cool to be Jewish. That's roughly what happened, but that's definitely not what I expected to happen. Now, I have the honor of speaking with many of you individually. It's always such a privilege and a delight to get to know every one of you. I know that some of us don't follow the news. It's just too much. I know that others of us don't stop following the news. It's just too much to risk not knowing. And as I've gotten to know all of you, I've developed more and more respect for each of these different perspectives, as opposite as they are. I've come to understand where you all are coming from. And I suppose my own perspective is somewhere in the middle. I was turning on the news that night to try and get a sense of where the world is and where we, the Jewish people, are within that. I think that most of us are engaged in this endeavor in our own ways, especially now. And I had a conversation, this all reminded me of a conversation I had a few months ago with someone who's pretty new to our community, and this person was saying, why don't we talk about politics more? And I was like, let me work to understand exactly what you mean in this moment. You know, of course, knowing, as I know, that some of us don't want to be talking politics around here ever at all, but this person explained. They have a lot of non-Jewish friends, and with all that's going on, with all that's been going on, discussion of politics with non-Jewish friends is just not working the same way it used to. And this person wants to talk about politics and current events, not to argue, but to understand, to speak with others who are also bright and attentive and Jewish about what's going on, what we should learn, how we should vote, and what we should do. And they made the point that the only people they really have now to talk politics with are their extended family, and they wanted to be having more of these conversations. And they made the point that the synagogue community must be a safe place for these conversations. Because what other place do we have? Of course, this person is right. Our community is a safe place for these conversations. It has to be. I know that some of us don't want to talk politics, don't want to talk about current events when we come together on Shabbat, but some of us do. Some of us have to. I know that many of us in our wonderful community have known each other for a lot of years. Some of us are very established in our opinions, and a few of us do have the specific goal of wanting others to change their opinions in particular and specific ways. And I'm not necessarily advocating to have the same conversation for the umpteenth time, unless of course you want to. There's nothing wrong with that. But some of us want to talk, have to talk. We want to learn. We have to learn from one another because it is not easy out there. Just 2 things that I want to highlight, very close to home, both of them. So in Pico Robertson this past Monday night, we have Jews here in our neighborhood, of course, but Pico Robertson is the Jewish neighborhood closest to us. And a man was coming out of a kollel. A kollel is a place where Orthodox Jewish men go to study Torah as a full-time occupation. And this man was assaulted. It was clearly an anti-Semitic attack. There is video of the attack and of the attacker's car, but no one has yet been apprehended. That's one thing. A second thing, in California, we have an election season coming up. There's a race for governor. I really don't know what to say about this. It's going to be an interesting process. But what I do know is that voter information guides have been mailed out to registered voters. I haven't yet received mine, but I did hear about this right before Shabbat It might be the first time ever, and I've been registered to vote in California for a number of years now, but this is the first time ever I've had a full-on conversation about the California Voter Information Guide. These are different times we're living in now. And what I was told is there's a candidate statement in there that is virulently anti-Semitic. Now, I hadn't seen it, and so I said I haven't received my voter information guide yet, but I got home after that conversation and found that our neighbor's copy of our voter information guide mistakenly ended up in our mailbox. So before I returned it to our neighbor, I found this statement and took a picture of it. And unlike the other candidate statements, it's preceded by a disclaimer: it does not represent the views and opinions of the Secretary of State's office. So apparently there's something in our law that specifies that this type of content can be published in this way, but the upshot is this statement, these words have been mailed out to all registered voters. And to make an understatement, that is not good. It's not good. So what do? We have to do something. Of all that we can do and all that we must do, here are two very small places to start. First, talk to one another. Form new relationships in our community. If you want to argue for the umpteenth time with a person you disagree with, if you want to agree for the umpteenth time with a person who you know shares your views, go right ahead and do that as well. But be particularly open to people you're just getting to know. And remember that since we're all here, we're all resources for one another. We don't all agree, but we are all on the same side. Second thing, never forget that it's awesome to be Jewish. Music, food, our art, our scholarship, our Jewish learning, our history, our homeland, our prayer and ritual, even our fashion. I was speaking this week to a young person who isn't Jewish, someone I don't know that well, and he was saying, I think it's so cool that you're a rabbi. I think that rabbis are awesome. And I'll be honest, I was surprised to hear this, but I was also inspired. I was reminded that we as a people have something important to bring to the world, which means that every one of us as an individual has something important to bring to the world. And when we're together in community, we can help each other remember this. So today, after services, when we gather to eat and talk and learn, let's remind each other and remember ourselves this essential truth, that each of us as people, as Jews, we have something important that we can and must share with the world. And that sharing can start right here today as we share ourselves with one another. Shabbat Shalom.